Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is Storyteller Siukai. And today we're diving into the third episode of the Great Qin Empire series. Let's explore a seemingly simple yet intriguing question. What was Qin Shi Huang's family name? Was it Ying, Zhao, Qin, or is there more to the story? To find out, we'll turn to records of the Grand Historian by Sima Qian. To begin, we need to clarify two key concepts: the Qin people and the Ying clan. This is the first part of today's story. Many people tend to equate these two terms, but the concept of Qin people didn't even exist before 900 BCE. Back then, the more accurate term was Ying clan, and while the two are often mixed up, they're not exactly the same. Qin Shi Huang was undoubtedly a great figure of the Ying clan, but not all Ying clansmen admired him. In fact, some were his enemies. For example, during the Warring States period, the Zhao state was a branch of the Ying clan. While the Zhao people identified as the Zhao clan, Qin Shi Huang himself was also a member of the Ying-Zhao lineage. However, it wasn't until he became emperor that he began emphasizing his connection to the Ying-Qin lineage. Before that, the Qin people often claimed a connection to the Zhao state for a sense of prestige, referring to themselves as Ying-Zhao. That's why many historical texts, including records of the Grand Historian, call Qin Shi Huang Zhao Zheng. The Zhao here doesn't necessarily mean he was part of the Zhao state's ruling family, but rather shows that he belonged to a branch of the larger Ying clan. So what does the character Ying in the Ying clan's name represent? This character is believed to have been a symbol of nobility since the time of the legendary Emperor Shun. In ancient China, there were 8 great surnames, most of which included the radical for woman, nu, signifying their origins in matrilineal societies. The character Ying also contains this radical, highlighting the ancient heritage of its bearers, tracing back to the noble clans of Emperor Shun's time. In ancient China, surname Qing and clan name Shi were different. Surnames originated in matrilineal societies and served as markers of tribal identity, while clan names emerged in patrilineal societies to denote specific family branches. Over time, as societies transitioned from matrilineal to patrilineal systems, clan names became identifiers for noblemen and distinguished family branches. The Ying clan's name is a remnant of this matrilineal tradition, reflecting their ancient lineage. According to records of the Grand Historian, the Ying clan was already powerful during the time of Yu the Great, who is famed for taming the floods. They allied with Yu's tribe and played a significant role in flood control efforts. When Yu established the Xia dynasty, the Ying clan became one of its core noble families. It's worth noting that Xia's aristocratic system was based on bloodline, whereas the Zhou dynasty later shifted to a feudal system based on land grants. It's important to understand that the term Ying clan refers to a group of people bound by shared ancestry, not a specific place. This distinction sheds light on the social structure of early China. During the Xia dynasty, aristocratic identity was rooted in bloodlines, but by the Zhou dynasty, this system gave way to a land-based nobility. For instance, nobles would adopt the name of their granted territory as their clan name. However, the Ying clan preserved its identity as a bloodline-based group. The Ying clan wasn't just notable for their noble name, they also had their own totem and banners. Their totem was the dark bird, Suanyao, an image frequently found on Qin artifacts. The Ying clan's emblem featuring the dark bird was emblazoned on black banners, and this motif even influenced Han Dynasty designs, where bird imagery was common. The dark bird's depiction varied over time. In its earliest form, it likely represented a swallow. According to the Classic of Mountains and Seas, the dark bird originally referred to swallows, but why choose the swallow as a totem? One possibility is that swallows, known for their seasonal migrations, symbolize the Ying clan's nomadic lifestyle in their early history. Bird totems hold special significance in many cultures. For example, ravens in Norse mythology symbolize wisdom, while eagles in Native American traditions represent freedom and strength. The Ying clan's choice of the swallow likely reflected their reverence for vitality and the cycles of migration. During the predominantly agrarian Xia dynasty, the Ying clan stood out as nomads. They maintained their migratory traditions and chose the swallow as their totem. Some records even claim they could understand the language of birds and beasts. This wasn't necessarily mythological. Their nomadic lifestyle likely gave them unparalleled knowledge of livestock, which seemed almost magical to settled agricultural societies. The Ying clan's conservatism was evident in their cultural practices, such as their matrilineal traditions, tattoos, black banners, and even myths about bird egg pregnancies. While the Central Plains agrarian societies had transitioned to patrilineal systems, the Ying clan held on to these ancient customs, embodying an old-world mystique. Yet, this conservatism also forged the Ying clan's organizational strength and discipline. They were pragmatic and united. Despite being culturally distinct, their diligence and reliability earned them a place in various ruling systems, from the Xia dynasty to the Qin dynasty. During the Warring States period, the Qin people inherited the Ying clan's traditional values. Qin's reforms were a testament to this conservatism. While other states often pursued half-hearted reforms, Qin's transformations were thorough and decisive. This commitment to change, coupled with their latecomer advantage, allowed them to overturn the old order and rise to dominance, ultimately unifying China. Conservatism isn't inherently negative. It depends on how it's applied. For the Qin people, their conservatism became a source of unparalleled strength when they embraced reform. This trait allowed them to achieve great things at critical moments, embodying the iron-blooded spirit that Sima Qian famously described in records of the Grand Historian. Sima Qian's portrayal of the Qin people is complex. While he often criticized Qin Shi Huang as an individual, he showed great respect for the Qin people as a whole. This respect stemmed not only from historical analysis, but also from his personal connection to the Qin legacy. For example, Sima Qian's ancestor, General Sima Kuo, was a prominent Qin commander. As a young man, Sima Qian admired the iron-blooded military life. He even joined the army, hoping to emulate his ancestors' achievements, but fate led him to become a historian. Perhaps this duality explains the mix of admiration and introspection in his depiction of the Qin people. I hope today's episode has helped clarify the distinction between the Qin people and the Ying clan. While all Qin people are part of the Ying clan, not all members of the Ying clan are Qin people. The records of the Grand Historian, Shiji, mentions the so-called 14 noble clans of the Ying surname. But this term can be misleading. So what's the real story behind these noble clans? Many people assume that the Qin people were one of these clans. However, while Shiji lists the Qin people last among the Ying clans, it doesn't necessarily mean the ancestors of the Qin state were part of this group. When the 14 noble clans of the Ying surname took shape, the Qin people didn't yet exist as a distinct group. In fact, the Ying people had already been involved in founding the Xia dynasty. Unfortunately, we know little about their role during that time. Historical texts barely mention it, and there's no archaeological evidence to confirm their involvement even today. The last ruler of the Xia dynasty, King Ji, ruled for over 50 years but couldn't stop the collapse of the Xia aristocracy. The Xia dynasty's noble system was based on clan lineage, but it was eventually replaced by a new aristocracy built on regional power. Internal conflict within the Xia dynasty allowed the Shang aristocracy to rise and overthrow Xia's bloodline-based rulers. This was the famous Revolution of King Tang, where Tang overthrew King Jai and established the Shang dynasty. But this victory might have been far more complex than history records. What about the Ying people during the Shang dynasty? Shiji doesn't provide much detail. Some accounts suggest they supported King Tang's rebellion against King Ji, but the texts don't clarify their exact role in this revolution. What's clear is that the Shang dynasty's founding wasn't just about toppling a ruler. it was also a clash of two completely different cultural systems. The rise of Shang wasn't just a political revolution. It marked a shift from agrarian to commercial culture. During the Shang dynasty, the Ying clans began to grow in influence and prominence. After the Shang fell, the Zhou dynasty emerged, and the Zhou kings granted titles to 14 branches of the Ying surname, creating what became known as the 14 noble clans of the Ying. These were the descendants of the Shang-era Ying aristocracy. During the Zhou dynasty, these clans were distributed across what is now Henan province, forming an aristocracy more connected by geography than bloodlines. It's worth noting that these 14 clans weren't entirely bound by shared ancestry. They functioned more like a regional aristocracy than a unified group based on lineage. It's unclear whether the Zhou's feudal system inherited the aristocratic structures of the Shang dynasty. The 14 noble clans of the Ying were likely more of a geographical construct than a genealogical one. While the Ying people had once been a cohesive tribe during the Shang period, they gradually split into separate regional aristocracies under the Zhou dynasty. There's an interesting line in Shiji. The Ying clans are either in China or among the barbarians. This suggests that over time, some Ying people chose to leave and became what the Chinese called barbarians. But this doesn't mean they were foreigners. It means they followed different cultural paths and gradually diverged from mainstream Chinese society. In other words, Shiji tells us these Ying clans and the so-called barbarians shared the same ancestry but developed cultural differences over time. The term barbarians, Koiman Yi, isn't as simple as it might seem. It didn't necessarily mean foreigners, but referred to groups that had adopted different lifestyles and cultures. Shiji uses a vivid metaphor to describe them: human heads, but bodies of birds and beasts. This wasn't literal. It was about their clothing. While the Chinese wore hemp and cotton, these groups wore animal hides and feathers. Over time, these cultural differences made groups that once shared the same lineage grow further apart. That said, the concept of barbarians is more complex than how it's described in Shiji. It wasn't just a label for outsiders. It reflected cultural divergence and transformation. Differences in lifestyle and cultural choices eventually caused these Ying people to evolve into distinct, independent cultural groups. When Shiji talks about barbarians, it emphasizes their shared ancestry with the Ying clans. In contrast, the Book of Han, written during the Han dynasty, focuses more on rejecting outsiders. This difference not only reflects the historical contexts of the two periods, but also highlights the unique role of the Ying clans in cultural exchange and adaptation. Even today, the legacy of the 14 noble clans of the Ying surname continues to influence Chinese surnames. If your last name is Zhao, Shui, Shu, or others, you might be a descendant of these ancient noble clans. For example, the famous Zhao general Lian Po and the descendants of the state of Shui were all part of this lineage. Many modern Chinese surnames trace their roots back to these aristocratic families. As for the Qin state, while it eventually became a dominant power, it wasn't considered aristocratic in the early Zhou dynasty. Its rise came much later, which is why it wasn't included among the original 14 noble clans. In our previous discussion, we mentioned that most of the 14 noble clans of the Ying surname were based in the Henan region. But this raises an interesting question. How did the Qin people end up in Shanxi? After all, we all know the Qin are associated with Shanxi. To uncover the answer, we need to go all the way back to the time of King Zhou of the Shang dynasty. During Chapati, King Zhou's reign, two notable figures from the Ying family served under him: Failian and Eli, a father and son duo. Historical records describe Failian as exceptionally fast and Eli as a fierce fighter. It sounds almost like an ancient special forces team. However, their story didn't have a happy ending. In the famous Battle of Muye, the final clash of the Shang dynasty, Eli led the charge but was no match for the Zhou army's cavalry. He died in battle, while Failian met his demise later during the Rebellion of the Three Guards, an uprising against the Zhou dynasty. This rebellion was crushed by the Duke of Zhou, sealing the fate of Filian and the Shang dynasty alike. But that wasn't the end of the Filian family line. His descendants scattered to survive. One of his grandsons fled westward, eventually settling in what is now Gansu, joining the ranks of the Western Rong. Back then, China was sparsely populated, so exile wasn't necessarily a death sentence. It was more like starting over in a new land. Meanwhile, another branch of the family took a different path. One of Filian's younger sons, Ali's brother, chose to side with the Zhou dynasty instead of resisting. This branch earned the Zhou court's favor and was eventually granted land in the Zhao region, modern-day Shanxi. This marked the origin of the Zhao state. The founder of Zhao was a man named Zhao, but he wasn't just any ordinary figure. He served as a charioteer for King Mu of Zhou. Now, don't picture a simple driver. In ancient times, a royal charioteer was more like a personal assistant or trusted advisor. King Mu himself was quite the legendary figure. He expanded the Zhou dynasty to its height, and even made a famous journey to the west to visit the mythical Queen Mother of the West. Some scholars believe this Queen Mother was actually a powerful, tribal leader in the northwest. While King Mu was away on this diplomatic adventure, a rebellion broke out back home, led by his uncle. This is where Zhao Fu's legendary skills came into play. It's said he drove the king's chariot at lightning speed, covering 1,000 miles a day, to get him back to the capital in time to quash the rebellion. As a reward, King Mu granted Zhao Fu the Zhao region, laying the foundation of the Zhao state. Zhao's history, however, was far from smooth. By the end of the Western Zhou period, Zhao was conquered by the Jin state, becoming the Zhao clan of Jin. It wasn't until the Warring States period that the Zhao clan regained power and established the Zhao state. By that time, the Qin state had also emerged as a rising force on the Guanzhong plain. Here's an interesting connection. The Qin and Zhao states were actually family. Zhao's ancestor was Ali's brother, while Qin's ancestor was a direct descendant of Ali himself. So in a way, Zhao was the uncle, and Qin was the nephew. Over time, however, the Qin people distanced themselves from their Zhao roots, rebranding themselves as the Qin clan, instead of emphasizing their Zhao heritage. This rebranding wasn't just a matter of identity, it had political motives. The Zhou court harbored a deep distrust of those who had rebelled against them. If the Qin people had continued to highlight their rebel lineage, it would have hindered their development. By aligning themselves with the Zhao identity, they integrated more smoothly into the Zhou political system. This is also why Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin, was known as Zhao Zheng in his early years. Despite their rebellious beginnings, the Qin people gradually found their place within the Zhou dynasty. This wasn't unique to the Qin. Many exiled Shang aristocrats eventually sought reconciliation with Zhou as the dynasty's power solidified. Two notable groups exemplify this phenomenon. The first is the Shen family. Originally Shang loyalists, they fled west after the dynasty's collapse. Later, during the reign of King Xiao of Zhou, they returned and were tasked with defending the western frontier. The Shen family's ties to the Western Rong deeply influenced the Qin people's development. The second group is the Qin people themselves. Over time, they were accepted into the Zhou political fold, but remained categorized under the Zhao clan. This explains why the Qin initially identified as Zhao. The Qin story, as told in Sima Qian's Records of the Grand Historian, is one of struggle and resilience. Their ancestors were among the 8 great clans of the legendary Emperor Shun, founders of the Zhe dynasty, and key allies of Shang Tang during his rebellion. However, with the fall of the Shang and the rise of the Zhou, they splintered into 3 groups. One group assimilated into Zhou society as the Zhao clan. Another became the Western Rong, resisting Zhou dominance. These were the ancestors of Vice. The Qin. A third joined the 14 noble clans of the Ying surname, integrating into the Zhou feudal order. From these fragmented roots, the Qin people carved out a remarkable path. They were rebels, survivors, and eventually unifiers. Their story reflects the collision and fusion of Shang and Zhou cultures. From their rise on the periphery of Zhou society to their establishment of the Qin Empire and unification of China, the journey of the Qin is both a family saga and a mirror of China's ancient societal changes. So, what's the answer to our opening question? What was Qin Shi Huang's real surname? By bloodline, it was Ying, a name that stretches back to Emperor Shun's era. Politically, in early Zhou times, they identified as Zhao to shed their rebel image. But ultimately, Qin became their defining identity, a symbol of their rebirth and rise as a dominant power. Qin Shi Huang's surname isn't just a label. It's a testament to the perseverance of the Ying clan through centuries of upheaval, exile, and reinvention. From ancient nobility to rebels, and from marginal figures to rulers of a unified China, their story is one of resilience and transformation. That's all for today's episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. See you next time.